This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Welcome, everybody, for another Clinical Peptide Society webinar. And hopefully, oh, there's Lee. He just jumped on. So before I introduce Lee, I just want to go over a couple things here. And if you can mute yourself, that'd be great. And so I have to play. All right. So I'm going to be introducing Lee Rosebush today, and he's going to talk about his role in fighting to save peptides for the upcoming PCAC meeting to save 7 peptides, and that's coming up July 23rd and 24th. So just want to read this disclaimer. This webinar is provided as general guideline and for informational purpose only. The information is not intended to replace medical advice by other physicians. Readers and viewers are encouraged to confirm the information provided with other sources. Dr. Edmund Dr. Luis Martinez, Clinical Peptide Society, and the guest lecturer will not be liable for any direct or indirect damages from information provided. All right, let me do this slide. Uh, oh, let's try this. All right. So the next thing is housekeeping notes. If you have any questions, then type your question into the webcast interface. Please silence your phone. And this meeting is recorded. And let me silence a couple people here. Just 1 second. Kathy Schultz, can you please silence your phone? Let's see, mute. Caller 1, mute. All right. So for those that are new, we have a petition to save peptides, and it's very simple. You can go to savepeptides.org or clinicalpeptidesociety.com, and you'll see this petition. We have almost 10,000 signatures. Just you have to put in your first name, last name, your email address, and what country you're from, and address, and it'll go to the two state representatives. Sorry, your two senators and your state representative. So anyway, let me just read off a couple small little things. This is interesting from Thailand. It's interesting. We have a lot of support from outside the U.S., but Brian from Thailand says the public need the benefits of this new technology and cannot be dominated in any way by big pharmacy. Christine from Florida 6 days ago mentioned too many people are suffering. It's only right to allow them the option to use whatever means possible to regain their diminishing capacity. And this is another person from Florida. I'm a provider of functional health, and I've witnessed the use of peptides as a safe and effective alternative and or adjacent or adjunct for people to reduce chronic disease and increase health and wellness. Peptides should be treated as supplements and not only overly regulated just because big pharma does not have a hold on of them. Let's regulate the standards of operations for these compounding pharmacies and not take away the freedoms of Americans to choose what they put into their bodies under the supervision of licensed and educated clinicians. All right, so let me introduce you to Lee. And I had the privilege to work with him for the December 4th, 2024 PCAC meeting. And anyway, I was trying to save thymosin alpha 1, and unfortunately we lost at that time. I thought that was the easy, low picking fruit to win. But unfortunately, they predetermined that we were not going to, they weren't going to approve it. But let me tell you that Lee's very unique. He's not only an attorney, but he worked as a pharmacist, and he's also an author. Just showed me his new book. He's a partner for the law firm Baker and Hostler, and apparently they've beaten the FDA multiple times. He just recently co-founded the American Academy of Peptide Medicine, and his passion in saving peptides, his prior positions It was a pharmacist in hospital and national retail pharmacy settings in Indiana and Ohio. He's gained regulatory experience doing time at a Fortune 500 drug company and also worked at the US FDA Office of Orphan Products. So he actually has a lot of unique clinical experience. Here's a picture of his recent book, The Peptide Revolution, and he just sent me a copy of it. So when I have some free time, I'll like to read it. But just want to note that this foundation he started, American Academy of Peptide Medicine. There's their board structure, two boards, one mission. One's a medical advisory board, and the other one's a government advisory board. So I really like this government advisory board because they want that relationship with the FDA and DEA and state pharmacies to basically kind of put everything together. And that's what we need if these peptides gets passed. So there's a big meeting coming in July. PCAC stands for Pharmacy Compounding Advisory Committee, and they're going to review these 7 peptides: BPC 157, TB4, CMAX, Epitalin, MOTS-C, DSIP, and KPV. So I'm gonna let's see. I'm gonna have Lee speak. So let me unmute him. Just give me a second, and let me unmute you first, Lee. Where are you?
I think you've got me, Dr.
Okay,
Lee.
you got it.
Yep.
So you're on.
Perfect. Thank you. It's great to meet you all. My name is Lee Rosebush. As Dr. Lee just mentioned, I'm a PharmD registered pharmacist, been a registered pharmacist now for a little over 20 years. My specialty is blood cancers, leukemia, lymphoma. Spent a little time at the Cleveland Clinic, spent a little time at Eli Lilly. I apologize for that. And I spent some time at the FDA, the Office of Orphan Products. And now I've spent my time, for lack of a better term, on the dark side. I've been on K Street here in DC for 13, 14 years as the chair of the FDA and pharmacy practices at Baker Hostetler. We are one of the largest FDA and pharmacy practices in the world. More importantly, though, as was mentioned, I am the chair and on the medical government advisory boards of the American Academy of Peptide Medicine. I'm also, where you may have heard of me, as the chair of the Outsourcing Facility Association, OFA. We are the ones who sued the FDA over tirzepatide and semaglutide and continue on with multiple lawsuits with the FDA. We work with and against the FDA, depending on the policy positions that have been taken. We are fairly strong advocates with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the MAHA folks when it comes to certain topics. And then, where need be, we stand up for physician and patient rights. And so we are the law firm that, as I was mentioned, filed the lawsuits when the Biden administration moved the peptides onto list 2. And in doing so, we were the ones who were successful in getting them taken off of list 2. And then, unfortunately, as Dr. Lee mentioned, there were multiple peptides in October of 24 and December of 24 that went in front of the PCAC. The good thing is, Dr. Lee, is those lawsuits are still active, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has put forward dates for those drugs. So CJC, Imprimerlin, thymosin alpha, etc., that you and I previously have talked about. AOD is another one. We'll have to have a final determination decision by FDA what they're going to do with those by February of 27. So that's a little bit of breaking news for you guys. So a lot of us have heard about the 7 peptides for the July 23rd, 24th meeting. Several folks have heard in the media the second round of peptides in February of 27, right, that they're putting forward, but there's actually a third one. It's the ones that Dr. Lee and I previously have talked about that FDA is reopening, and we'll determine what to do with those by February of 27 as well, which includes thymosin alpha 1. Uh, what we're really hoping to do is to speak with each of you to be able to obtain as much clinical information as possible. Obviously, when it comes to clinical information, we understand that there's sensitivity around de-identifying HIPAA protections, as well as with these particular peptides, the sensitivity of physicians and pharmacists and saying that the data is coming from them, particularly that they're dispensing or prescribing these materials. I understand that. I'm happy to sign any NDA. We have NDAs in place to be able to obtain this data. And what we're looking to do is de-identify that data, put demographics, for example, if it's given to us male, female, the peptide that is being provided, as an example, BPC, the amount that was dispensed or sold, so say 1 vial, how many doses there were per vial, whether or not there was any customer complaints, and adverse event information. Think of it like a retrospective study. The idea in this situation is to take a look at how many units have been dispensed or sold here in the United States. We'll just use BPC as an example. And the idea is to take a look at that adverse event rate and compare that adverse event rate then looking back at, as an example, insulin. right? Other somatotropins, right? GH secretogs, GLP-1s, and to take a look at the adverse event rate as compared to those so we can understand if there is, in fact, any safety signals that we should take a look at. Now, up to date so far, we've collected on BPC alone about 1.4 million doses that have been dispensed or sold here in the United States. We have seen adverse events, but as was mentioned, the adverse events are usually pretty rare. As an example, maybe a red bump as an example from that. And obviously, that could be adverse errors from the person who's putting it in, whether that be a small infection, right, moving a needle around, etc., or a small immune reaction, etc., going down that list. So we were trying to be able to put all that together. We're also breaking those adverse events down in the data that we have by whether or not they're RUO, research use only peptides, or whether or not they've been dispensed and prescribed via pharmacies and clinical tested, as an example. But in order to do this, we need as much data as we can obtain and as much data as we can get from you. And so we're hoping that you have the ability to be able to provide that data. And so my email address is there on the slide, lrosebush@bakerlaw.com. Uh, please feel free to reach out to me at any period of time. Like I said, I'm happy to provide an NDA or sign any NDA that you may have. If you're interested about the peptides themselves and AAPM, another place that you could go to provide that data is pepmed, pepmed.org. That is the AAPM's official website. It is a 501c organization, a tax exempt organization, specifically to develop this. Now, once we obtain that data, we have actually contracted with a couple of PhDs to be able to put these material together. For example, work with an MD PhD by the name of Brad Jacobs, who was trained in Stanford. And we're also working with Dr. Severin from University of California, San Diego, UCSD, to be able to look from a biostatics perspective at this data as we move forward. In addition, we have a couple hundred articles that have been provided by Dr. Skerrick. Thank you, anybody who may work with him, to be able to look for research here and others. If you've got additional research, right, on these any of these 7 peptides, we'd love to be able to get that from you as well, whether it be human data, rat data, animal data, right, chemical data, etc. moving forward. Now, in addition to that type of safety data that we've been looking at, is more of like a retrospective study. We are trying to pull as much human data that is out there, things through clinicaltrials.gov, things that may be unpublished, etc. And we are looking for that human trial data. And then also we are working with some of the folks in the chemistry side to also look at how these products could be, for example, fermented, right? CGMP processes, method testing, what the mass spec weight would be to compare it against other samples for impurity profiles, HPLC, UPLCs. And so we're running those as well to be able to create, in essence, a monograph to be able to help determine this as well. The good thing is, and this may be news for some of folks, is that assuming these are approved come July 23rd and 24th, we do know of manufacturers who will be filing DMS by the end of the year, meaning, for example, BPC would have a DMF filed with the FDA and would actually be producing the API here in the United States by the end of the year. And so we are very close, assuming that these move forward on July 23rd and 24th, with potentially being able to actually have U.S. sources for BPC, as well as being able to prescribe and compound these products moving forward as well. Now, we've had some good, obviously, positions from Secretary Kennedy. If you listen to his Joe Rogan podcast as an example, he's obviously in favor of these. He's made out multiple tweets that are in favor of these as well. And so we think we're in a very good position, but obviously we're not going to take it for granted. And so that's why we're hoping to be able to provide all of this and be able to slam the ball home, slam dunk here at the end as we move forward. The deadlines for this data, so folks understand our timing here, is our deadline to be able to provide data to the FDA for consideration by the PCAC is July 9th. And so we are coming up on that quickly, obviously less than a month away. And then the oral hearings, for those that would be interested in hearing that, if you would like to attend in person, it starts at 8 a.m., July 23rd and 24th at the FDA at their White Oak Caucus. There will also be a virtual link for those that would be interested in attending as well, so you can watch it online. I will be presenting. There will be others presenting as well. The FDA will be presenting. And for those that are very interested in the data side, the FDA will be providing memos in their form of the data as well on July 9th. And so in the next couple of weeks, we should have FDA's formal position on each of these peptides and whether or not they're going to move to allow these to move forward. Now, there's been an awful lot of discussion even for tonight on BPC. I want to make sure it's clear that that's not the only peptide. The 4 peptides that will be discussed on July 23rd include BPC, TV4, we often call that, obviously in the industry, TV500, CMAX, right, and MOTS-C. And then on the July 24th, you will have epithelin, DSIP, and kisspeptin or KPV. before we open it up sort of for questions so folks understand, right? I'm hoping that we can try and have an understanding that we are trying to obtain as much data here as possible to be able to move these forward so that way folks have access to that. That is the entire idea behind this, is that as an industry, if we create the reference standards, which is about where we're at, just about a USP light monograph, and we have this access to these data, then we're going to be in a very good position to ensure that we all have access to these moving forward. And so that is the idea behind this as we put this data together.
Um, how much data do you got for the other like TB4 and like say DSIP and epithalin? I mean, that's amazing. You have 1.4 million for BPC 157. So if you want us to try to get data for the other smaller peptides, we can do that. Um,
That would be extremely, extremely helpful. To kind of get you an idea, the next biggest one for data is TB. And thymosin beta, we're at about 900,000 doses. And obviously, when you and I presented it in 24, the largest that we had was CJC at about 700,000. So we're both of those substances above. However, on the other side, epithalin, which I would say there's probably more human data available for epithalin based on your and I conversations, actually, and what we've been able to find. I mean, we're down around 100,000 doses. And so we any dose that we can get, I know folks may say, well, we may only have looked at 20 patients, right? Um, any number, the more that we can increase the N number, obviously, the better off we are, especially when it comes to these retrospective studies.
Yeah, so we really need to just basically just have our staff just to look back in your chart in your EMR, and you can see. I mean, hopefully you have a nice simple EMR system to see how much peptides you prescribed per year, and then if it's if it's epithalin, you could just say for longevity or something like that. You don't. I mean, everyone's a little different, but if you think that they all benefited, you could say 100% benefit, and see if you remember if there's a side effect. I mean, like a skin reaction or something like that, or a site reaction. Just mention like that, and what dose you use and which pharmacy you use, and yeah, please email it to Lee. You can see his email right here. And the more data that if everybody contributes, like this will really help. So you're really low on, I imagine, MOTS-C, epithalin, DSIP.
Yep, those three. To be honest with you, we could use a lot of them. And we often get the question, well, we bought from Peptide Sciences or Alpha Biomed, right, for in its research use only. Even that, right, even if it's not data that you obtain from a pharmacy that's done, COA testing, everything else, that's okay, because we may recognize that it's research use only, and we'll say as such, right, in our data,
Right.
but it still shows in that perspective to be able to move forward. And we often get the question, well, if it's research use only, especially, but even for 503As, you don't have the legal requirements as you do with an FDA approved product to do FAIRS, as an example, or MedWatch reporting for adverse events. And I think we all could acknowledge and recognize that if these were having overdoses, as an example, of poison control issues, we do have and we are in the process of pulling data from poison control centers, overdose data, as well as hospital visit data, for example, on ERs. And so if we had the spikes that we're talking about and we don't see the increases there, again, it's not definitive, but it infers pretty something very strong when it comes to these type of reference points. And so anything that we can obtain with the data, the better off we are. And so even if you think, well, I don't know, I please, right, send it over. I'm happy to have that conversation, de-identify it for you, and to ensure that it gets included in the right category.
All right, so that's an important point there too, because you did mention that all the names that the doctors that are submitting, they'll be anonymous.
That's right. That's right.
100% anonymous. So you won't be
100%.
tagged. You won't be, the FDA won't be knocking on your door or anything like that. So you
That's right.
just have to send the data in, and if everyone can contribute and send it in quickly, this will really help.
You've got my word not only from that perspective, but I also would not even say what state you're from. So if you're in Nevada or if you're in Maine, we're not saying the data came from Nevada or Maine. It's practitioners licensed here in the United States.
All right. So does anybody have questions for Lee? You can just unmute yourself and ask.
it looked like Dr. Johnson, you were asking where should we still submit. My personal email is, I'll just read it off. I know that Ed has it on the slides, but just in case, is L Rosebush, like the flower, LROSEBUSH at Baker Law, BAKERLAW.com. Or you can go to American Academy of Peptide Medicine, AAPM's website, and the website is pepmed.org, pepmed.org. The other thing I want to make sure everybody knows on the PepMed side, we are hosting our Peptide World Congress on September 17th and 18th here at the Four Seasons Hotel in Washington, D.C. And we'd love to have as many people as folks as possible. In fact, for example, we've asked Secretary Kennedy to come to the meeting. Obviously, we can't promise that he will be there, but we have asked him to attend as well as others. And so, if you have any questions on that, the information is up on that website, but we're happy to talk about that as well. And we've talked to others. For example, we've asked Dr. Huberman to come, right? We've asked Alex Tatum to come, Larry Lipschultz to come. And so, if there's other questions, relations, things along those lines, let me know. The other question that we often get is about AAPM's advisory board, who actually is on that. Just to kind of get you an idea, if you go on the website, you'll see it. But on our advisory board, as Dr. Lee mentioned, for the government advisory board, we have 3 sitting governors, and we also have 2 sitting surgeon generals. We have the past head of FEMA for the Trump administration. We have the CEO of MAHA, myself, and 2 Stanford trained physicians as the government advisory board. So it kind of gets you an idea of the folks that are involved with this. And so we truly want to see this move forward. We're having direction and conversations with the chief medical officer at HHS. We're having conversations with folks at FDA, including the head of compounding. And I think this is a lot different than the last time that we had the conversations in 24. Just to get you an idea, when Dr. Lee and I went in front of the PCAC, the Pharmacy Compounding Advisory Committee at the FDA in 24, no knock on NIH, but it was an entire panel full of NIH doctors. This time, in this perspective, it is so far 6 physicians that are associated with A4M. So it makes a big difference, obviously, as to who the audience is and their understanding of peptides and why this is important.
By the way, here's a picture of 2024. Lee's on one side and I'm on the other side there. So that was after a big battle. I'm still mentally scarred from that meeting. But anyway, I have nightmares about it. But so is A4M helping you out to get all the data there too?
If obviously, if you want to push on that side as well, it'd be extremely helpful. I've talked personally to APC, which is the 503A Trade Association. I know they sent out an email today, but if you could help,
I will talk to Jim Laval tomorrow.
That'd be great. I'm supposed to talk with him as well. If you could help push on him a little bit, that would be hugely helpful.
Yeah.
Morgan, I just saw your question come through on the data. The data that we are, we'll take any data, but the data that we are particularly looking for, demographic, if you've got it. In other words, on the demographic data, all we really want is patient. Is it a male or female? We're not asking for patient names because of HIPAA. So please don't send patient names. If you do send, we can de-identify it, but prefer not to receive patient names. And then what we're looking for is the peptide that dispensed or prescribed. If you've got it, the dose, the amount sent. So, for example, 1 vial or however many units that you did. If you say by the vial, it would be very helpful to understand how much or how many doses are in a vial. So, for example, if you buy from Alpha Biomed, we've had our conversations with the folks over there. The Alpha Biomed folks usually have 10 doses per vial. So it kind of gets us an idea of how many doses from that perspective that have been sent. And then whether or not you had any adverse events or customer complaints.
Do you want their age?
If you've got it, that would be great.
Because remember the October meeting, they were really picky.
They were picky on the age, and the other route is route of administration. If you've got it, right, we get an awful lot of questions to say we understand that folks are going for the injection, but we do oral or enema, right? For example, on BPC, on ulcerative colitis, you may have a lot on enema sided. So if you've got the route of administration, that would be great as well.
Well, I kind of guessed what you wanted, so that's why I wrote this on that slide here. So
no, that's perfect.
All right.
In the data, so that way folks understand how much data we've seen, right? So far, we've seen injection doses over 20 milligrams, And think about it, the standard dose for BPC is less than one. You're right, micrograms. It's kind of get you an idea of TD and LD. And we've seen enema data that goes over 80 milligrams. And so again, obviously there's a difference in absorption in AUC when we start talking enema data, right? Because rectal is different than injection. But right, that's still extremely helpful when we start talking about data, particularly because the FDA, when they're looking at efficacy claims this time, right, is BPC. They're not even looking at it for orthopedic reasons, right? Angiogenesis, anything along those lines. What they're looking for is ulcerative colitis UC data. And so the enema and oral becomes even that much more important to be able to show it, in fact, has been used that way. So any data, especially in the route of administration that may be a little bit different, we'd love to be able to talk about.
Yes. All right. So if everyone contributes, you just need to ask your staff to collect some simple data. And the data that we really need is the KPV, also epithalin Cmax, because they're really deficient in that. But if you have others with the, I'll list the other peptides, MOTC, the BPC 157, DSIP. I think that's also, you probably have I don't think many people prescribe DSIP. So I don't know if that peptide will be saved, but anyway.
I, I'm hoping so, but look, there's probably two, so people understand that are going to be the toughest. The two toughest is DSIP just because of the usage of it, right? And the
Right.
second one because of the genetic aspect, right, around epithalin. Now, I think it works, right? I'm a fan of it, and we also have some human data in that one. But the question becomes is if we start talking about telomerase and the extension of those and filling in genetic code aspects of it, there becomes questions on what that means. I think that they're disingenuous questions, but that is one that I think that is going to be pushed heavily by Lilly, Novo, and others, and so we have to be ready for it. And that has scared some folks at the FDA. So those are the two that scare me the most, and that's why, especially in the epithalin, the more data we have, the better off we're going to be.
Do you have that? I'll show. After at the end. I have a book on basically the epigenetic effects with several of the peptides, and there's a whole book on. There's a whole several chapters on epithalin, on the
Perfect.
epigenetic effects. So the Russians have researched this 20 years ago.
Well, I
So
agree. Right. I want to make it clear. I don't agree with that, right? As to what their arguments are, but that's also the arguments that are coming back with us. And you and I know last time we had a total of 3 minutes to 5 minutes to talk.
yeah,
And it's tough to answer all those questions in 3 minutes and still be able to get it forward. So
yeah, it's an amazing book. It's peptides in the epigenetic control of aging. Which is now like everyone's talking about cellular reprogramming. And this book was actually published 2017, so way ahead of us. So,
yeah.
um,
And if anybody's interested in our book, let me know. I'm happy to send you a copy of our book. Our book that I just wrote is with Brigham Bueller. For those that don't know Brigham, he's the owner of Ways to Wells Clinic in Austin, Texas, as well as Revive Pharmacy in Houston. And he's the one who goes on Joe Rogan on a regular basis. And then our foreword from that is from Tony Lyons, which is the CEO of Maha.
all right. All right. Yeah, everybody wants a copy of this book. I think you can get it on Amazon. So,
You can get it on Amazon, but if you send me an email, I'm happy to send you an electronic copy as well, right? For the folks who are on this, that's how much this data means to me. I'm happy to send you guys an electronic copy. Just email me directly.
all right. I think the group is asking, here's a picture of the peptide revolution. So if you want this, you can just email Lee on that. And then let's see. I'll just type in the book that I just mentioned about. That's a little hard to get. It's not a limited edition. So epigenetic control of aging. So it is kind of a geeky book, but it's pretty. I mean, it's way ahead of its time. So, all right. Um, hopefully, you guys will help out. We need everyone's help there. So, just even if you only have 10 patients, 10 is better than 0. So, that's if everyone contributes, this will really help. And try to send it in a week. Don't wait the last minute. So, before you know it, the deadline will be past July 9th. So if we don't fight for it, we're never going to win. So you have to all help out. So, all right. Any other questions? All right. Couple small little things. For those that we're doing another peptide certification, so if you have friends who want to learn how to use peptides correctly, we can come. There's a live class September 11th, and the next day we're going to have a evidence-based longevity summit. And the last time we had it, it was sold out. In July, we're going to have Dr. Greg Jones talk about AMPK activators, molecules. August, I'm going to have a vacation there. In September, there's a person that does lab testing for peptides. So they look at, if you're getting like research only, they can tell you exactly what's in it. So anyway, it's an interesting little company there. So thank you, Lee, for giving us an update here. And anyway, I'm sure your plate is full. And that's amazing that you have 1.4 million data on BPC 157. So
Thank you. Thank you.
And almost 1 million for thymosin beta 4. So yeah, I just personally, I'm deficient in one reception. I have one receptionist. So if I ask her to do this, she'll probably quit. But anyway, if I hire someone quickly, I'll get more data for you. I have to be very careful what I ask for her. So anyway.
And thank you all, right? Like, as I mentioned before, this is a personal passion of mine. I've been doing this and working for 20 years, and I couldn't do it without you guys. And so happy to take the fight to them, right? Somebody has to be able to stand up for all of us and our beliefs, right? There's nothing more important than what physicians and patients believe and need to have access to. And so happy to take that fight to folks to make sure we all have access to the medications we need. And couldn't do it without you. So thank you all.
All right. All right. Thanks, Lee. So,
Thank you very much.
all right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.